I'm Katie Sewell, and this is A Bittersweet Moment with Tiffany Parks.
Hello and welcome to the Bittersweet Life. I'm Tiffany Parks, and this is your midweek Bittersweet Moment. Today, I thought I would make a public service announcement for anyone who is on their way to Rome this year or sometime in the future. And if you yourself are not, consider forwarding this to somebody you know who is going to Rome or Italy in general, or let's just go wide, anyone who is traveling to a big major world city in the near future. Because as someone who has lived in Rome for over 20 years and worked in tourism for almost that long, I am seeing a very worrying trend. And I know that it's not just happening in Rome. It's happening in Paris and in London and in Madrid and in Bangkok and Tokyo. And what I'm talking about is the urge of so many tourists to check things off of a list. We've kind of talked about this a little bit on the show, but I want to talk more specifically about it today because it's getting out of hand. Quite frankly, it's getting out of hand. And I am here to give you permission to not do and not see all the things that the influencers, the guidebooks, and the websites are telling you you must see. I don't know when this started, but I know that 20 years ago, when we all brought rough guide travel planners, like I did, travel guidebooks, rough guide was always my favorite. There were always about 3 or 4 color photograph pages in the front, and it was like 24 things you cannot miss. You must do these things. And particularly on my solo travels, when I went to Vienna, when I went to Portugal, a couple of other solo trips that I took those recommendations very much to heart. Now, I wouldn't see all of them, but I would make sure that I would do as many as I could because I wanted to have a full experience, like so many travelers. And I remember particularly when I was in Lisbon, one of the recommendations was you have to have these little pastries at this particular pastry shop. And I want to say it's in the neighborhood of Belen. Don't ask me particulars because it has been so long now. I think it's been 18 or 20 years since that trip to Portugal, and I lost all my photographs. Don't ask. And I was alone, so I don't have anyone else to back me up on this, but I know it was something like that. A neighborhood called Belen, this little creamy pastry. And it was like, this was a typical Portuguese dish, sweet, and you had to get it at this one particular place. And I remember taking the tram up there because it's just slightly outside of the center of the city. It's in the city, but it's not in the sort of main drag area. And I had to line up at this shop. And I mean, we're talking the late 2000s is like 2008, maybe it was. So, the line wasn't that bad. But I did wait. And I got this little thing, and I'm sure I overpaid for it. And I sat down. This place was full of tourists. And I hated it. I just hated it. It wasn't my type of dessert. I'm sure it was good, but I didn't like it. It was too custardy and too creamy. And I just thought, what a waste of time. What a total waste. I could have been anywhere else. I could have been doing anything else. And then I think back to a trip that I took to Venice a long time ago in the 90s. It was just a day trip. I was staying with my then boyfriend at his friend's parents' house in Cremona. And Venice was a pretty quick day trip. And so we had no money, so we didn't want to spend the night there. So my boyfriend and I took the train and we spent the day in Venice. I want to say this was 1996. If I had to guess, that's the year. I hate to age myself this way, but I have to do it because the year matters. It was, I think, my first year in college. Anyway, we had no guidebook. We not only had no guidebook, we had no map. We did not have a map. We obviously didn't have cell phones. And I will never forget that trip. I will never forget just wandering the canals. We didn't take a gondola ride because we didn't have the money. We didn't go to the Doge's palace. We might have gone to the Scuola Grande di San Rocco because I heard about it in a Woody Allen movie. And it was beautiful. We went to St. Mark's for sure. and we wandered and we fed pigeons and we got lost so many times. And that day in Venice was so much better than that day in Lisbon when I waited in line for those horrible pastries. Now, the trip to Lisbon was wonderful. I'm not going to say I didn't have a great time, because I did. But I want to kind of get back personally, and I want this for everyone, to that type of travel. The type of travel where you just let a place unfold itself to you. Let a place reveal itself to you. I remember discovering this little neighborhood in Venice that was completely deserted. Now, is it deserted today? Probably not. It's probably been discovered by every tourist under the sun. But these things do happen. And I know they happen in Rome because I live in Rome and I see deserted areas of Rome, which I talked about on my last mini episode when I talked about the quiet neighborhoods. There are places that are unexplored, especially in the bigger cities. Let yourself find these places organically. I'm not saying don't make any plans. Obviously, I'm a tour guide. I create itineraries for people. If you're looking for a Rome itinerary, get in touch. I can make you one. And I take people to important sites. So I'm not saying, throw the guidebook out the window, throw away your map, don't consult anything. But maybe one day of your trip, let yourself just discover. Let the city guide you. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. Let the city guide you, because I believe in serendipity. I believe there are things that happen that are way better than we could plan. And it's happened to me many times. Venice is just one of those examples. I see people daily in Rome whenever I am out in the center, especially if I'm leading a tour and I'm walking through touristy areas, waiting in line for ages for a particular type of tiramisu. And I can tell you as a Roman, it's not the best in Rome. It is absolutely far from the best tiramisu in Rome. But some influencer said it was the best, so everybody waits there. I've seen people waiting in line outside of a cafe, a regular, ordinary coffee bar, for a maritozzo, which is another traditional Roman sweet that you can get in nearly any cafe. And most of the coffee bars that sell them don't make them there. They buy them from a bakery. So you're just getting something that's in hundreds of other shops. But they wait in that particular line because Instagram told them to. I see people waiting. I mean, the line to get into Sant'Ignazio di Loyola, a church that I love, was literally out the door and around the block the other day. Not to get into the church. You could walk into the church with no line. The line was to look into the mirror and take a selfie, I guess. I'm not sure what they do. But, you're wasting how many precious hours of your trip to Rome to do something because someone else told you must do it. I'll go so far as to say the Vatican. You do not need to go there. The Vatican's wonderful, don't get me wrong. Probably the greatest art collection in the world. But as someone who went to the Louvre last year and missed the Mona Lisa and still had an amazing time, I was telling, go back a year ago and you'll hear about my trip to Paris, which went totally wrong and totally right at the same time. We miscalculated the closing time and we spent too much time in the ancient wing of the Louvre and we missed the paintings. I was so angry and so mad at myself at the time. But looking back, when I was telling this story to a Parisian friend of mine who was here in Rome just a couple weeks ago, Claudio, my husband, said, but it was wonderful. We got to see the Codice of Hammurabi. We got to see the Venus de Milo. We got to see all of the medieval underground area that he had never seen. And we had a wonderful time. It was practically empty. There were hardly any people there. And our experience of the Louvre is totally different from the people who made a beeline for the Mona Lisa, and that's all they saw. Now, am I saying you shouldn't see the Mona Lisa? Of course not. Everyone should see the Mona Lisa once in their life. But you can still have an amazing trip without seeing those things. You can have an amazing trip just looking at the Colosseum from the outside and not lining up to go inside if you don't really care that much. Now, we all have priorities and we all have the things that we personally know that we have to see. For me, on a recent trip to Florence, that was the church of San Miniato al Monte. But it had a personal significance for me because a scene from the book that I'm writing takes place there. So figure out what it is for you, for whatever reason, is important for you to see. And make sure that those are the things that you see. And all the things that everyone else tells you to see, honestly, they might not be as important as you think they are. So that's my public service announcement. I know our listeners, and I know that our listeners think more like me about this than they think like the typical tourist. So I might be preaching to the choir here. But share this mini episode, because the more people who start traveling in this way, the better traveling is going to be for everybody and the more enjoyable it's going to be, because those few sites won't be overcrowded the way that they have become in our modern Instagram age. So share this on your social media sites, send it to your friends who are traveling, no matter where they're going, and keep it in mind on your next trip. Thanks so much for listening. Join us again. Bye.
Do you have a topic you want us to explore? Send your requests. We love to hear what you want to know. Visit thebittersweetlife.net and contact us with your questions, your adventures, your observations, your favorite episodes. We love hearing from you. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Bittersweet Life Podcast.